Good morning and welcome to another Fast Tracks webinar. This is a weekly event we do every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. We like to go over software, things that are new, review training. You can view all these webinars if you go to our website, goftx.com, choose the FTx Lifeline tab, scroll down about halfway down the page, look for that webinar button, choose the View Webinars, and this page will load up and it will have a list of all of our previous webinars, which can be viewed by choosing that View Record button. And at the bottom of the page, we'll have an option to register for new webinars that are upcoming. Today, we're going to be looking at department level rules. And departments, that is, of course, what holds your items on your retail side of the software. There's many different rules that can affect how a transaction is handled at the time of ringing it up, and also how it can affect reporting. Now, departments, of course, you have to have departments in order to ring transaction up, period. So whenever you create an item, you absolutely have to have a department in place to assign to that item. So first and foremost, before you add any items to your price book, you have to have departments. Now, one of the very first things we're going to see on the department is a POS flag. And that's kind of a prerequisite for having a department. Now, we're going to jump to what a POS flag is right now before we actually go over all these options and departments. So a POS flag, that is what holds, is it a positive or a negative sale? As in, are you taking money from the customer or are you giving money back to the customer? Does it have an age requirement? And is it taxable or not taxable? So whenever we look at a POS flag here, I've got taxable pulled up. We can see I've got the name assigned for taxable. I've got a tax group assigned that's taxable. You have, by default, one of two options, non-taxable or taxable. A positive sign, which means that I'm going to be taking money from the customer. A zero age requirement. And I'm not using a grandfather rule. That's a rule strictly for Maine right now. And I'm not accepting food stamps. There's also no excise tax. So if I want to add an age requirement on here, I'll just jump down to my taxable tobacco. And we can see it looks identical to the taxable side, except for the fact that it has an age requirement of 18. So what does this do? Well, let's look at a transaction. I'm just going to ring up two items, one with the age requirement and one without. So before we ring up an item, let's look at how the department is set up. I've got a miscellaneous department here that's got a taxable POS flag. If I look at my full price pack and carton, I've got that set for taxable tobacco. So if I ring up an item, I'm just going to do an open department sale for $1 in this miscellaneous item department. Notice there's no prompt for an age. Now, if I ring up an item that is in the department that is for full price packs, I'm going to get a prompt here for age verification. And at this point, I can either scan the customer's driver's license, manually punch in the birth date, or due to an option I have enabled here, choose the visually verified button. So that's how your age verification works. So let's jump back here to our POS flags. And let's look at the negative value. So that's, of course, both of these have a positive. Well, how does a negative value function? Well, let's look at the negative taxable and negative non-taxable. Notice these are virtually identical. One is taxable, one is non-taxable. The difference being they have a negative sign there instead of the positive sign. The negative sign means that it's instead of me taking money from the customer, I'm going to be giving money back. So an example of how this would be used would be like on a online lottery or a scratch ticket department that's a payout. So like here I've got a lotto payout. I've got it assigned to the negative non-taxable department. So let's look at how that functions in the POS. I'll just do $5 and I'll do the lottery and lotto payout. I'll do the lotto payout and notice it's a negative $5. So now I'm giving the customer money back. That all happens due to that negative sign. Now, the final thing we're going to look at on the POS flags is that tax group. Now, tax groups and tax rates, they cannot be changed at corporate. These are store specific and have to be assigned at store level. So you first and foremost, if you're changing this, have to have the permission to manage taxes. So on the POS side, I'm going to log into someone who has that permission. And where you find this is under Actions and Management and Taxes. Here I have two different tax groups. We can see those two tax groups, of course, here in Director. There's my two options. I can build a new one if I need to by choosing that New button, but I just want to leave those two because right now that's all I need. Outside of this, I have my tax rates, and those are managed by choosing that Tax Rates button here. Now I've got a state tax, a city tax, a net tax, and I have the option for another tax rate. My state tax I have input as 8%. My city tax I have input as 2%. So on my taxable group here, notice I have apply tax rates 1 and 2. Well, if I edit that, we can see that's applying state and city tax. On my non-taxable group, if I edit that, we can see it's applying tax rate 3, which is my no tax. So that's where your tax groups, that's basically how your tax rates get to assign to a tax group, and your tax groups get assigned to a POS flag, and your POS flag gets assigned to a department. So let's let's look at the departments themselves. We'll start here with the very first and foremost, most important thing on a department is the department number. This is a field that has to be a numerical value, and it has to be unique to the department. So you can't have two department ones. You can only have one department one. So every department number has to be unique. The name, that's of course what's going to show up on reports. There's a POS name. These generally are going to be the same. You can have them separate if you would like. The name doesn't have to be unique though. You can have multiple miscellaneous departments, for example. What has to be unique is of course that department number. Department group. This is a field that by default there's just a default department group. You don't have to utilize department groups, but it's a nice way to do this for reporting simply because you can say I have 4 different lottery departments: my lottery sale, lottery payout, lotto sale, and lotto payout. I can roll those up to just lottery. I basically go to my department groups, choose new, I input a unique numerical number, and then a name. So here we can see I have a department group 4, that's lottery. So that's an easy way to, instead of when I'm running my reports, to select 4 different lottery departments, I can just choose a department group and run just by that one lottery department group. For example, my cigarette departments, instead of running on these 8 or 9 departments individually, I can just run on that one cigarette department group. Just makes it a bit easier to manage whenever you're running your reports. So we've already talked about our POS flag, our inventory code, cost of goods sold code, and our accounts payable code. That's of course your inventory codes that's used for your accounting exports. If you've not watched the webinar on the accounting exports, I would highly recommend you watch that. These fields, of course, if you're utilizing the account exports, whether it be QuickBooks or Great Plains, they absolutely have to be input. This is how you map your departments to your accounts in those accounting softwares. The next area will be our open department minimum amount and maximum amount. This is going to be used for whenever you're doing open department sales. And an open department sale, that is, of course, when you're not ringing up an item, you're not scanning a barcode to ring up an item, you're inputting a dollar amount and assigning that dollar amount to a department. So you're not really removing inventory, but you're at least adding a dollar value to that department for you to keep track of. The target margin here, this is going to be what is your target gross margin of that department. So we can see here, these three all are in relation to your open department sales, because this is only going, your items themselves, of course, have a cost and a price, so it has a margin already assigned to that. The target gross margin is going to be for open department sales. So for example, I've got on this miscellaneous department here, I've got this set for 80. What this means is if I key in an open department sale and I key in $10 as that value, my cost of that $10 is going to be $8, this 80. I'm making 20% margin. So to view that, let's do a transaction. And I'm going to do an open department for $10. My miscellaneous item, that's keying in just a $10 value to that miscellaneous items department. I don't know what the specific item is because I didn't scan it, but at least I have the value that was keyed into that department. I'll subtotal that out and cash it out. And when I go to run that report on that, we'll go to our department sales report. We'll filter this by department, our miscellaneous department. We'll start today at 9 a.m. and I'll run that. We can see here that I have that we've already done one transaction, but I have a $1 transaction in that miscellaneous items and a $10 transaction. We can see that I have $8.80 as my cost. So in that $1 transaction, due to me having 80%, due to that this value here, the gross margin target, due to that being 80 on that dollar transaction that we had done, 80 cents of that dollar is my cost. On the $10 transaction we done, $8 is the cost for a grand total of $8.80. And there's my total dollar amount made, $220, which is my 20% margin. All right, so the next area is the add to sales checkbox. Now what this does is it will add to your total sales for the day on a department if this is checked. If it's not checked, it doesn't add to your net sales. So for an example, notice I have my lottery sale, lottery payout, lotto sale, and lotto payout. Those checkboxes are not checked, which means if I run a department sales report or I do a register Z report and I have the correct options set, I won't see those departments added into my net sales for the day. So an example of this would be, let's do a couple transactions and we can see how this actually works. We know my tobacco items are added to sales, so I'll do a transaction there. We'll do a $5 lotto sale. We'll do a $10 lotto sale. And we'll go ahead and see that out. So we'll go to our reports now. Remember that these are set to not add to sales. We'll first look at our Register Z report. We'll choose the Z that we just done. And we can see here, there's a not added to sales dollar amount. So for our adjusted sales, we have that value before the not added to sales. And then we, of course, have our combined total, which we can see our total combined sales, which will add that to your not added to sales department. On our department sales report, if we do this, there's an option to exclude departments not added to sales. So if I run this report, I can see there's my lotto sale, my lotto payouts that were done. If I choose that, notice those departments don't show up anymore. So I really get two different report values based on what checkbox I'm checking. Here I have a total of $120.33 as my retail. I choose that exclude departments button, run it again, and I'm down to $110. Those departments that are not added to sales now no longer show up. So that's a great way to have departments keeping track of sales in those departments and not actually have it affect your net sales for the end of the day. So the next area will be our department level discounts. We have a discount level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is used for house accounts. What this will do is it gives you the opportunity to put 4 different values, 1, 2, 3, and 4, on your departments. And it's a percentage off of every item in that department. And you assign that department level discount to a house account. So, for example, we'll look at, I have a full price pack department here. I've got a department level discount of 1 that's a 10% off and 2 that's 20% off. So if we have a customer that comes in and they are not a house account customer, and we see that there's 10 and 20, so I'm going to now go to the price book. We can look at the price of this item that we're going to scan, our Winston. The retail price is $10.03. So if I ring this item up, it rings up for $10.03. There's no specific customer tied to this transaction. I'm going to choose my subtotal here, and I'm going to go past my uplift prompt, which if you've not seen anything on uplifts, I highly recommend that you watch our uplifts webinar. It's a fantastic upselling tool. There's my subtotal. Now I'm going to ring up a house account customer that is assigned to a department level discount. So before we ring that up, we're going to look at the house account and how it's set up. I'm going to my maintenance module, and I'm choosing house accounts. And I have 2 house accounts here, John Doe and Jane Doe. And we can see that John Doe has a department discount level of 1. Jane Doe has a department discount level of 2. Well, if we go back to that department here and we look at our full price pack, we can see that the discount rate of 1 is set for 10% and 2 is 20%. We had just done a transaction with no house account customer tied to the POS transaction, and it rang up for the full $10. Well, if we add in John Doe to our transaction, he should get 10% off. So there's John Doe. I'll add him. We're going to ring up our Winston. We're going to verify that age, 903. So he's getting 10% off this transaction. I'll subtotal that out, go past my uplift prompt and cash the sellout. And if we do Jane Doe, she should get 20% off because she's assigned the department discount level 2, which is 20% off. So I'll assign Jane Doe to this transaction, do the exact same item, and notice it's $8.02. So this same item we're ringing up in 3 different transactions has 3 different pricing levels. Our standard price, which was $10.03, our department discount level 1, 10% off for John Doe, which was $9.03, and our Jane Doe, which is 20% off, hers is $8.02. Go past our uplift prompt and cash the sale out. So that is how your department discount levels function. Now keep in mind, if you assign a department discount level to a customer, say 1, then they're going to get every single department that they have the ability to buy from. They're going to read from this department discount level 1. Now that level 1 can vary. You can have it 10% on one department, 20% on another, 0 on another. But no matter what, they're going to get that discount level 1 on that department. So keep that in mind. It goes for all the other levels too. If you have a department discount level 2 assigned to the customer, like Jane, then every department, whenever she purchases an item, is going to look to that department at the time of sale and say, is there a discount rate assigned to that department? And if there's an item on that transaction, it's going to give her whatever that rate would be, whether it be 20% off like on the full price pack, 0 like here on the lottery payout, or if we put something on like our premium cigars and we put that as 50, she would get 50% off. Those numbers don't have to be the same. So this next area is the add to carton count. And if you're participating in any kind of retail scan data incentive program, this is a fantastic way to limit your transactions. I know a lot of states out there have a limit to the number of cartons that can be sold in a specific transaction. This is a way to do that. So, in order to add a department to a carton count, you first have to build a carton count rule. So let's go to our carton counts over here. We can see that I've already built one. To build one, you just simply choose the new button, give it a name, a limit, and then we add our manufacturers. So we're going to look at the one I've already built here. We're going to choose the manufacturers button. We can see that I gave it a name of Altria. The limit of cartons per transaction is set to 5. The manufacturers, that is the manufacturer product code at the beginning of the UPC number. So that's going to be the first 6 digits of that UPC code. In the case of Marlboros, it's 028200. So I've got just that added to this rule, and I saved it. So how does this actually function? Well, for example, we know that the Winston is, of course, not a part of that. So if I ring up a Winston, this widget for carton count does not get updated because it's not assigned to a carton count rule. That manufacturer barcode for this Winston doesn't start with 0282, it starts with 0123. So even though it's assigned to the same department as the Marlboros, it's not going to be counted in that definition. Now, if I ring up a Marlboro item here, that does have 0282. I'll verify the age. Notice that widget now goes blue, and it sees that I rang up 0.1 of a carton, a pack. If I ring up another, it's 0.2, and it will keep going up each pack I ring up. If I ring up a carton, it's going to add 1, a solid 1.0, because it's a carton. So we can see here that I've ring up 1 carton in 3 packs, which is 1.3 cartons. I'll go ahead and cash that out. So what happens if I try to exceed that limit of cartons? We remember that I have that set to 5. So I'll ring up, let's say, 1 pack. There's my 0.1. And I'll ring up 5 cartons. 2, 3, 4, and my 5th carton. And I'm getting an error here. Carton count for definition Altria has been reached. I have to basically adjust this sale in order to avoid a contract violation. So, as soon as I close this, I'm immediately greeted with a void screen, and I have to void something off this transaction because I can't proceed because that rule is going to be broken. So I can either void off that 1 pack to bring me down to 5 cartons, or I can void off a whole carton. So I'm going to void off just this pack. And now I'm down to 5.0. I'm perfectly fine. I've hit that limit. That's how the carton count rule works. It's, like I said, it's a fantastic way to prevent you from breaking contracts that have limits on the number of cartons in a transaction. And it keeps track of your carton and packs. The key to that is to making sure that you have the correct manufacturer prefix, the department itself assigned to the carton count rule, and the items need to be set up properly with a parent-child relationship. So if I look up those Marlboros here, I'm on the pack level right now. That's a pack. And we can see under the link information here that it's got a purchase unit, the carton. So that's how it knows a pack is equal to 1, or a 0.1, and a carton is equal to 1.0. That link is very important to have set up. Now, if you've not watched the webinar on our price book management, I highly recommend you watch that because that's a great way to see how to set up links and properly assign items to your price book. So back to our departments here. The next option is the max % discount. Now, what does this do? This is a way to, if your cashiers have the ability to manually discount an item, what is the max % discount that they can do on any item that's in this department? So I've got a button here, a percent off item. If I ring up an item, let's say I ring up, search for a Marlboro, and I'm going to look for a carton here. That menthol will work. And I want to discount that, so let's say I ring it up for 50% off, and I discount that. It discounts it perfectly fine. I may not want that to ever happen because I would be losing a lot of money if a cashier done that. So I've got this rule set up on the pack department that I could move over to my carton department. Notice it's set for 10% here. The max that can be discounted, the max manual discount rate is 10%. So if I try doing this on a pack in that department, say for example my Winston, I ring the Winston up and I try doing 50% off and discount that, I'm going to get an error message here. That 50% off exceeds the max discount rate of 10. This is a way to prevent cashiers from doing exactly what I just done a second ago. So the max I could do would be 10% off, and then I can assign it to that item for a max of $1 off. They can't just wildly discount whatever because there's a rule in place. Now, this isn't a department-specific rule, but it's a button option that you can use on the discount button that we'll look at. If I go to my percent off item here, there on the button itself, you can actually assign a manual percentage. So if I put 10, that basically forces that button to be 10% off. The cashier can't key in any random number, 5%, 50%, 75%, 75%. It's forced to be 10%. And I can assign this button to only work on certain departments. So if I only wanted this button to work on my miscellaneous department and I save that, then this button now only works on my miscellaneous departments. That's not really a department-specific rule, but it's just good to know that you can actually put more details on this button. Now, if you're unsure of how button editing works, I highly recommend you watch our webinar that covers button editing. So let's go back to Director, and we're going to look at the next options, our quantity on hand reorder point, override order days, and our override types. This is options that are going to be associated with your reordering. You can override the number of days, the reorder point, and you can have it either completely override your order, increase by a certain amount, or decrease by a certain amount. Now, I would recommend you watch our ordering webinar because we go into detail on how these actually, what each option actually does. It's a great way to, if you have this department or certain departments following a certain order method, but you want them to follow different rules, it's a great way to supersede that. The next checkbox we're going to look at is the has sales restriction. What this does is it will basically assign a sales restriction to that department. Now, sales restriction is a way to limit, to basically put a rule in place where you can't sell items on a certain day, days, or times. So I'm going to go to my sales restriction tab, and we can see I have an option for no Friday sales. I first assign my stores. If I choose my create new button, I give it a name. I then assign what stores I want to follow this sales restriction rule, and then I can assign what days I want this restriction to follow and what times on those days. Now, today I've got it set for just Friday between 12 and 11:59 p.m. So pretty much all day today. If we go to our departments, once again, I've got this assigned to my Department 58, which is my beer and wine department. We see that I have the checkbox checked. Sales restriction set for no Friday sales. So let's see what happens. If I ring up an item in that department, go to my Corona happy hour, I try ringing up an item there, it's going to get me unable to sell item due to sales restrictions. Why is that? That's because the item is associated to that beer and wine department, and that beer and wine department has that sales restriction assigned to it. It's for Friday all day long. So if you have certain items that can't be sold on certain days of the week or certain times of the day, this is a great way to limit that. Finally, the last option is disclaimers. This is a relatively new feature. This is basically a way to put a line of text at the bottom of a receipt. So if I go to my disclaimers here, at the very last tab, we can see that I've got a disclaimer set for nicotine is addictive. Well, if I go to my departments and I look at my full price pack and carton, notice I've got a disclaimer set for nicotine is addictive. If I wanted to add that to another department, I'd simply choose the department, go to the disclaimer dropdown, choose it, and save it. Whenever we ring up an item that does not have a disclaimer, say I ring up a miscellaneous item, and I cash that out, we can see that on the receipt here, I'm going to scroll up and down on this little white area of the screen here. We can see there's a virtual receipt. There's no disclaimer. Yet if I ring up an item that actually has that disclaimer assigned to the department, I subtotal that out, cash it out, we can see there is that line, nicotine is addictive. That shows up because I put a disclaimer and assign that to the department, and the item is a part of that department. Okay, so that covers all the department options. I hope everybody learned something today and got something from this lesson. Remember that these webinars happen every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can see these if you go to our website, goftx.com. Choose the FTX Lifeline tab at the top of the page. Scroll down about halfway down this next page and choose the Webinars button. And this page will allow you to sign up for newsletters in regard to the webinars, view all of our previous webinars by choosing that View Recording button, and sign up for the upcoming webinars. If you have any questions on how to use any of these features, contact us at 256-319-3470, option 1, or web support at FTx POS.com. And if you have any feedback or suggestions for upcoming webinars, contact us at info@goftx.com. I hope you have a great weekend. We hope to see you next week. Thank you.